Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. Jim and Paul will be today's presenters and will discuss the topic of how to extend Azure DevOps and Jira into an adaptive portfolio management solution. This webinar is a new addition to our series of adaptive webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others on our channel. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar from OnePlan. My name is Jim Patterson, and I'm joined by my colleague, Paul Estabrooks. Why is OnePlan giving this topic? Well, one is we have a passion and a specialization in the areas of project and portfolio management, just extending that to overall work management. We're consistently recognized as a leader in these subject matter areas. We were recently again named Microsoft's Global Project and Portfolio Management Partner of the Year, as well as certified by Scaled Agile Inc. In Scaled Agile, such that we can help people in all different types of portfolio management disciplines. We are also recognized for our excellence by folks like Gartner and Infotech, analysts and research groups that really hone in and keep their finger on the pulse of what's happening here within this marketplace. And we're here as a full service organization. We're here to help you to whatever degree you'd like us to assist you in your business agility transformation. It could be just standing up solutions like you see here, or even helping you with the people and process side of things. So we're a full service firm and we're here to help you to whatever degree you need. So let's talk about what's driving the need for this topic. And it really comes down to digital transformation, even creeping into the areas of business transformation. This thing, this digital transformation era is bringing about change. And that rise of digital transformation is transforming all kinds of industries, whether it be department stores and retailers that are becoming digital, the streaming of media as opposed to, getting things the way we used to with, CDs and DVDs, transportation, the way we actually make and run our cars in the electric mode with highly computerized types of models. What this means is that even former brick and mortar industries are impacted by this. And if they don't respond to this digital transformation and finding these new ways to reach their customers and these new business models, they may or may not survive, AKA blockbuster. And it impacts all aspects of the organization, whether it be the executives who have to strategize what these new business models and approaches are, the PMOs that have to get a handle for the organization on a wide variety and increasingly technical type of projects that have to go on, the software development teams that end up with having more work on their plates, not to mention the services people that actually have to make this work and maintain it over time and have it succeed with the customers. Let's just say that there's change that permeates all through an organization because of this trend. And the change just continues to accelerate, the speed of the change, the pace of the change. And we have to stay on top of this. If we don't respond to it and respond to it well in a timely fashion, we could find ourselves left behind by our competitors. So to that end, people are trying to become more agile in their organizations. We call it, in this case, the shifting to the left from more of the bigger bang, larger, scope type of projects that deliver a big bang towards an end of a long cycle to a shift left where we actually deliver more incrementally and more frequently and deliver value incrementally along the way as we're investing in these types of things. And it gives us the ability to shift course after each iteration and do that sooner so we can be more responsive to our customers and to the marketplace. To do that, many organizations are finding that their teams and their individuals are looking for tools in the cloud, which are readily accessible these days because maybe the legacy tools in the organization don't support these new agile methods. And today we're going to talk about Jira and Azure DevOps being used for agile approaches, but we find that this matrix that you see here is not uncommon to what we see in many organizations as the amount of tools and hence the silos of information that are generated by that. So there's different methodologies now that are going across an organization. Agile is growing. It continues to grow in organizations in the number of organizations and the depth of which it hits organizations. But waterfall is still widely used in a lot of cases by portions of an organization based on the types of projects and work that they're doing. People have Agile variants or hybrid methodologies that bring together a little bit of Agile and a little bit of waterfall, or just some personalized cherry-picked versions of Agile that they might want to use. So we find in the marketplace there's a real diversity of approaches that people are using that seem to work best for them on the things that they think that they can leverage. Now, this is supported by the Project Management Institute that says that smart organizations realize that using Agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps is not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility, that most organizations are more than likely to use several different project management approaches. And we find that to be true. You know, trying to force fit someone into a specific methodology when the nature of the work or the type of their projects doesn't seem to fit that, you know, aka maybe facilities or, you know, more infrastructure type of projects might not be as more conducive to Agile as, say, a software development or product development project might be. So we have to ask ourselves, where are we in the Agile transformation spectrum, or where are we trying to get to? In this diagram, we're looking at, as people are moving left, from the right-hand side, you see traditional project portfolio management, which is more waterfall oriented. And a lot of organizations are striving to get as agile as they possibly can, which is over on the far left of this diagram. Now, that journey can take years. And through that journey and during that transformation, they're going to find themselves in an adaptive portfolio management state where they're still going to have a combination of both of these agile aspirations and the traditional waterfall that they've been in for a while. Now, that may be a temporary state during the journey, but the analysts like Gartner and Forrester are finding that very few organizations actually get all the way over to full agile across the organization. That well over 80% of organizations are going to find they're going to stay in an adaptive mode permanently, meaning they're going to have some mix of projects of different types and methodologies and different tool sets that might be used in that. And that's what we're going to focus on here today, is the fact that wherever you are in the spectrum, you need to have tools and a portfolio management capability that actually can address that and support you wherever you are in this continuum. And adaptive portfolio management really is more than just mixed methodologies. You know, there are different portfolios that we could be using. You know, there's traditional project portfolios, there's program portfolios, there's IT service portfolios, product portfolios. You know, different portfolios or application portfolio management that happens as well. And these adaptive PPM solutions are meant to provide you with the ability to meet people where they're at and provide the tools and the capabilities that are needed to deliver to the marketplace or to the customers, whether they're internal or external. Now, to make that happen, bringing this data together has been the challenge. We talked about the proliferation of tools. And in this diagram, we look at, say, for example, at the team level, different tools might be used to manage or execute on projects. Down below, we're showing things like Azure DevOps for more agile or iterative methodologies. You know, Microsoft Project, which is more waterfall. And Jira is another one that's used primarily for agile. You know, things like, you know, Project for the Web or Office 365 Planner may be using more waterfall techniques. And even using things like OnePlan directly for a combination of both of those things. But the challenge here is that we have different projects. They need to come together in a common portfolio. A PMO, for example, especially on an enterprise level, has to manage across all of that, right? And we have to provide information to leadership that aggregates and rolls up in a language that makes sense for them, up through programs and strategies and portfolios and even corporate goals, or whatever that hierarchy might be. And some of the agile portfolios may have different structures. So as we look at this, leadership really has to have the information of the language of the business to help them support and direct the direction of the business, as well as track how their investments in these projects are tracking that are being executed on by the teams down below. Now, even if we go to a full agile mix, which might be just using agile tools like Azure DevOps and Jira, for example, even then bringing that together and translating that information up through the portfolio is a challenge for many organizations, that it ends up being a very manual or at least semi-manual process of mashing up data. So for example, the teams may be using fully agile approaches and, you know, tracking things on execution by using things like burn-ups, burn-downs, velocity charts, and cumulative flow diagrams, et cetera, where leadership is still looking at things maybe from a more financial perspective and a delivery perspective. You know, how are we doing on cost? You know, how are we doing on milestone delivery? You know, are we on budget? You know, are we getting the returns? Those types of things. The idea is to provide a solution that addresses the needs of all these audiences. And that's where OnePlan comes in. Here with OnePlan, we actually connect all the way from the strategy level, from that senior team or senior leadership, all the way down through the execution level, and making sure that there's components in there for all participants in that process, as well as providing the proper visibility and tool sets for those folks. So OnePlan provides portfolio level information from the top down, whether it be more traditional portfolio views with or without timelines, maybe portfolio boards for people that have more agile approaches and maybe even use it with things like program increment planning sessions. Even roadmaps. So more product-oriented folks want to see roadmap views of things, and using the same data, but presenting it in different formats is something that's very powerful within an organization. So things like roadmaps aren't just these separate static artifacts that aren't tied to the real data. And having common approaches to doing resource capacity planning and a common approach to financial planning and tracking, regardless of what execution tool sets you're using at the execution level. So when we come from the bottom up, OnePlan has tool sets right in it to do waterfall work planning and agile backlogs and sprint planning, for example, right in it itself. But given the proliferation or the adoption of tools like Jira and Azure DevOps, for example, we can use what you're already doing there and fold that in and bring that data into the portfolio on an automated basis. The same thing with waterfall, bringing in data from things like Microsoft Project or the new project for the web is things that can be brought up and provide real consistent status reporting and status reporting formats without manually having to cobble those things together every reporting period. And for the team members, being able to have one place to go to see all the work that's been assigned to me, regardless of whether it's coming from Azure DevOps, Jira, Project, whatever it might be able to actually have insights to see what's on my plate, maybe what am I falling behind on, what requires my attention. So whether it be from the team level all the way up through the executive visibility that we need, OnePlan can provide this for you. Add that strategic layer. So we've been thinking in terms of the project portfolio, but now we can actually have a strategic portfolio, in this case with objectives and key results, in this example, where you can actually execute on strategies according to a plan. And then not only execute on strategies at the executive or transformation level, but also align those strategies with the projects in your project portfolio. So we get a more holistic view that's well aligned within your organization. Now, when we talk about connecting these things, we're not talking about doing one-off custom coded things each time. OnePlan provides a platform for integration with standard connectors for things like Jira and Azure DevOps that you're going to see here today. But it also applies to things like your HR or your ERP or your financial systems or your service management systems or your CRM systems, whatever it might be that might have a good synergy or need to dovetail with your PPM solution. And so when we think about connecting with these connectors, think about a portfolio in OnePlan where all the portfolio management capability happens consistently at that level, yet the inputs that are feeding into the details of those portfolios could be coming from a Microsoft project for waterfall plans or from an Azure DevOps. So we have a mixed mode adaptive solution here. Or Jira, adding that to the mix could be the same use case. It is the same use case from a connector perspective as far as OnePlan is concerned. And then maybe it's all Agile. Maybe you have some contingencies that are using Azure DevOps in their Agile approaches, and some are using Jira in their Agile approaches, and it's feeding up to a portfolio. This one represented by more Agile types of boards at that portfolio level. But the idea is that same connector technology, that same integrated approach applies no matter whether it's a mixed mode of waterfall and Agile or multiple Agile tools feeding into that portfolio. So if we think about this, just one option of use case, these productized connectors, which you see listed at the bottom here. On the OnePlan side, notice that we have portfolio level information added to the mix that you aren't necessarily tracking in Azure DevOps or Jira, or doesn't have the native capability to do it well. And then the work plan level information that may be synchronized. So for example, you might go through a whole portfolio intake process, an approval process that ultimately results in a project or maybe an Agile epic that then becomes a project or epic over in, say, Azure DevOps or Jira. And then when you actually execute on those in Azure DevOps or Jira, the backlogs that you build, the sprints and the iteration plans that you build over there, the things like the features, user stories, tasks, bugs could be coming back over via this connector, back over into OnePlan to roll up into that portfolio for visibility to those non-software development folks that need that information brought over into OnePlan without them having to do additional work on those Agile teams in order to provide that information or to provide duplicate information just to feed the PMO or senior leadership. On top of that, on this integrated type of approach, we are built for the Microsoft Cloud, and we do provide a fused user experience. Now, OnePlan can be used just directly in a browser, your favorite browser. But from a user experience perspective, this fused strategy means, are we working in Power Apps in the Microsoft Cloud on a regular basis? Well, we can leverage and consume OnePlan right from within there. Are we in Teams? So many people are working in Teams and collaborating today in there. Why not do your project and portfolio management right within Teams with all the extra collaborative capabilities that are there? Now, if we bring Azure DevOps into the mix, why not access OnePlan right from within Azure DevOps? So we need to access the capabilities that OnePlan is supplementing Azure DevOps with. Why not get it right from within the user experience that that user is working in every day? And the same thing would hold true in Microsoft Dynamics or in SharePoint. The key is to keep the users working in the tools that they work in every day, not have to jump around and do a lot of task switching, but be able to get the capabilities they need right where they're at. So what Paul's going to show you today is some of the things on the portfolio planning and the flexibility there. The ability to bring in planning data from a variety of tool sets, as you see here. Be able to do resource capacity planning consistently, regardless of the tool set. Be able to do financial planning. Be able to do what-if scenarios and resource prioritization in the context of your timelines and what that means, and work with trade-offs. And the same thing holds true from your financial prioritization in a what-if scenario modeling type of approach. And even team collaboration, just be aware that we leverage the Microsoft Cloud and Teams and SharePoint behind that for content management, so that the infrastructure that you're using today can be exploited or used to supplement and make an even richer experience for your portfolio management capabilities and needs. And reporting, we leverage Power BI heavily, and the fact that we have a native feed and a content report pack that is in Power BI that comes with the solution as a starting point gives you some rich capabilities to communicate information even to non-OnePlan users of what's transpiring within the portfolio management realm. So what we want to provide for you is one interface, one experience, all via OnePlan. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Paul to have him demonstrate you these capabilities in OnePlan in action in a live system.
Thank you very much, Jim. I'm going to walk through a demo. I'm going to highlight some of the things that Jim mentioned in that overview in the slides, and I'm going to focus particularly on the integration with the DevOps and Jira. That's where I'm going to spend the majority of the time today, and then I'm going to jump around to a couple of different environments and show some of the different capabilities. As you can see on the screen, I'm in Teams, so I'm going to demo today inside Teams. I kind of like to do this demo this way. I think it gives you that rich experience of where Teams fits into this, but you can see I've got my OnePlan portfolio here in Teams. I'm just going to shrink the left navigation there a little bit to give myself a little bit more space. So what you're seeing here first and foremost is the portfolio view of all of our projects, that adaptive portfolio. Jim talked a lot about that in the slides or at some of those early screenshots. And you can see I've got a portfolio and a program, and underneath that I have projects and epics. So I have this hybrid scenario, this adaptive scenario, where I've got some projects that are being managed in a more traditional fashion using a variety of different scheduling tools, and then I have other projects that are being done in an agile format, and we're calling them epics here as they sort of follow a more traditional agile structure, and they're connected to different tools as well, specifically Jira and DevOps. Now, there are some projects in here. There's one right at the top, support customers using mobile, which is actually connected to both DevOps and Project Pro. So it's hybrid within a hybrid environment, and we support that as well. So in that particular use case, that particular project's being done, probably managed through a project schedule, but has some items that are following agile approaches or being managed over in DevOps, and we want to be able to draw those in. So we have both in that project. I'm going to spend time today on a couple of other projects. So I have a rich set of views here that I can do. Jim mentioned this, this idea of boards, so I can bring those projects and epics in and view them and sort of how they fit in this particular example in business units with some color coding of status. And I can also look at them on a roadmap. So even projects that are following an agile model, I can have them in a roadmap, and I can have others in here that are in a waterfall structure, and I can be looking at both simultaneously. So I'll jump back to my list here just for a second. So I'll go back to my portfolio summary, go to this one, and expand this out quickly. And I want to spend our time today focused on those two different use case scenarios that Jim's focused on in the slides, which DevOps and Jira. So we'll start with DevOps. We have a project here cleverly named Azure DevOps. This helps for demoing. And you can see here that I've got my backlog, and I have brought in all of the content related to this particular epic over in DevOps so that I can view it here. And I can potentially change resource assignments here, and I can do different things. And then you can see there's a couple of things I want to highlight. First off, this tells me that there is an update to this task. So this task, the old value was in progress. It's now been marked completed over in DevOps, and I can accept that update and bring that here. So it's telling me, it's alerting me to that there have been changes made over in DevOps that I want to look at and make sure I'm okay with, or that they make sense, I'm not surprised by them, and I can accept them and they'll move forward. Our grand objective here is that this project's being done in DevOps, and that's a common requirement by customers, that they have groups that need or want to work in those tools, and other projects are being done in other tools. But there is information we need at the portfolio level, back in that portfolio view: status, resource usage, potentially budget impact, and so forth. All of this capability up here: resource plans and financials, and then status reports. We want to be able to capture all of that information regardless of what tool you're using. So here, there's a critical example. There's an update that would impact potentially some resource usage. It may be coming some data from the timesheeting, or we need to feed the timesheet, as well as, which may has an impact on the budget, as well as certainly the status report. So I want to be able to immediately know about that and be able to consume that. Now, let's sort of dive deeper into that connection. So I'm going to go click on this connected system, and you'll see here, this was brought in recently. It was brought in just the other day. I could go and open up, and I'm going to do that in a second. I can open up that whole project. I could disconnect, let's say the project's done, or we don't want to connect it anymore. But more specifically, I can import or export data to and from these two systems, between them, through this very UI right here. And what that's doing is saying, maybe there's a bunch of updates, there's changes, there's new items that we've added in DevOps, and we want to import those in here so we have a complete picture. Or perhaps we've done some things like resource assignments, or changed some things, priority and so forth, and we want to export that back to DevOps. It's all based on how the connection has been configured. So both options are there for our user to do. I'm going to click on Open Item, and just so we'll dive into this inside DevOps. We're going to come into our work items. I'll jump into the backlog quickly. And there is that particular one. And so all of the items that you saw appear in OnePlan are located here. And this is sort of that exact same structure. And if I click on one of those items, you can see we can sort of come in to OnePlan, sort of like through the looking glass. We can look at it from the other side. We've also added in this work log. We haven't specified the timesheet yet for this particular item, where someone can actually record, because they're living and breathing and working, I should say, inside DevOps. They maybe want to do their timesheet entry from here associated with the item in question, as opposed to going out to the timesheet. They can actually log that item here, and it will feed back to the timesheet accordingly, so that they don't have to go and do that second update there. So it's right here, local is the new capability that we've added in. So right here inside DevOps, I've jumped from OnePlan in here. I can go back and look at some of the OnePlan components. I can also do a timesheet update. Plus, I can do all the things you would typically do, obviously, in DevOps in working on this particular item. So before I leave this, I have over here our OneConnect integration. So I have up, this is sort of the back end, the back of the store, as it were. And I'm looking at the different mappings. So I'm just going to grab fields just for fun. I'll grab items really quickly. I'm not going to dive into this in a ton of depth, but you could see we can configure each one in which direction they go. Some of this data is coming only from DevOps into OnePlan, and that would make sense. Some of it's bi-directional. In theory, you could have data go in the opposite direction as well. So this is where we define that. We define the mappings, we define the schedules, we define all the integration, any other specifics we need to do. So this is where that's occurring, and this is how that engine is running. So that is a complete look sort of at how we've done that with a DevOps project. So it gives that organization or that group or someone managing a project there the ability to participate in providing a resource plan, in providing, a budget or tracking a budget, and looking at sort of where we are with things in that particular project while executing using Agile tooling, yet participating in the data needed to drive the portfolio. Let's jump back out to the portfolio. Now let's sort of dive into the Jira scenario. In Jira, you could see the same thing. So we've drawn in another backlog. We have an item that can be updated from Jira. So we've obviously changed the status for some reason. So we have that, I can accept that, and so forth. Or I can connect to Jira. Same scenario. I can open up that particular Epic in Jira and go and do a bunch of work in it, maybe add new items and so forth, and then bring them over. Or I can import some changes, maybe I just did, or export some changes if I have some that I could send back. We'll open the item really quickly. So here I am. There's that Jira project. I'm just going to jump into it. You can see all of that capability. So everything that you can do in Jira, here we are. We've landed right at that particular item, and we're working through it. And there's those same items that we saw over in OnePlan. We could do some updates here and then go consume them in OnePlan. So it's that tight integration. And if I sort of bring it full circle, I scroll down here and look for my Jira symbols. There it is right there. This is the Jira connection, the same idea. We're looking at some of the mappings. If I just throw those up real quickly, you can see the different mappings. In this particular case, everything's coming from Jira straight to OnePlan. We're not allowing data to go back. That's just a configuration exercise as for what works for the organization in question and what data you're trying to track. So I come back out here. Again, this Jira project can provide a resource plan. It can do budgets. It can do all of the things it needs to do, up to and including a status report for how this particular project is going, because from a portfolio perspective, we need and want to know that. And we need to be able to react to that and act accordingly. And we don't want to have to go to Jira or to email or to some other system to get this. We've brought all of that together here for us as an organization to figure out where we are, what's going on, what decisions we need to make in terms of resourcing and financial constraints and realigning or reassigning budget to get things done accordingly based on our strategy and our alignment to our core objectives. But we're allowing the business to operate, or the teams to operate using the tools they need. And what you've seen here today is sort of that bidirectional integration between both Azure DevOps and Jira as they participate in the overall portfolio that we see here, and providing the necessary updates to drive this thing forward. And with that, Jim, I'll bring that demo to a close.
All right, terrific. Well, let's summarize what I've talked about and what Paul has demonstrated to you and talk about some potential next steps. So let's summarize the value of OnePlan for adaptive and/or agile PPM. We ensure that organizations are working on the right things aligned to strategies and priorities if we use the strategic capabilities and align it with the projects that we have in OnePlan in that portfolio. Also, having this ready visibility into all projects, regardless of where they're being executed, allows for rapid response to changing conditions and have us take corrective actions on a timely basis where we still might have a positive impact. It also keeps users working in their preferred tools and solutions that's appropriate for their role, maturity, and the type of work that they're doing. As we've shown, it supports a variety of execution methodologies and tools, whether they be waterfall or agile. This can improve adoption by minimizing duplication of effort and unnecessary complexity, meaning sometimes agile teams are being asked to duplicate data in order to meet the needs of a PMO or senior leadership in status reporting. This makes it a more natural output to that process without duplicating effort. Hopefully you saw that a modern user experience in OnePlan is present, and that usually drives better participation and compliance if the tools are easier and friendly to use. And we get to integrate all work and resources into a common hub like Paul showed you with the resource capacity planning that's consistent within OnePlan, no matter what projects you're working on and where. Now, the teams, as we talked about in the slide earlier on, continue to be agile, but leadership then gets the visibility and metrics that they require or that they expect to manage the business from a business perspective. Ultimately, we want better collaboration and a decision support process across all areas of the business. And the more communication and visibility we have, the more responsive we're going to be and the more adaptive we're going to be. So we do webinars like this all the time. We don't have another one planned yet for the remainder of the year with the holidays coming up, but we have a rich library of on-demand webinars. If you go to oneplan.ai/webinars, you can see a whole bunch of on-demand ones if you're interested in seeing more on this project and portfolio management set of topics, Agile, waterfall, and alike. And we have some related, let's just say, thought leadership types of webinars as well. If you want to try OnePlan for yourself, we do offer free trials up on Microsoft's App Source. We have the adaptive portfolio management template that you saw today. We have a strictly agile portfolio management option. Or if you're just looking at strategic portfolio or maybe professional services automation, we have those variations available to you up there. We also offer a free roadmap workshop. If you're intrigued by this and you're really interested in kind of taking advantage of some of this, we're happy to, on a pre-sales basis, help you review your current use of solutions and tools, assess your current requirements and your desired future state, and determine what it's going to take to get you there, and provide you with an implementation roadmap for best adoption success and give you an idea what the total cost of ownership might be, because we're leveraging to a large degree on what we showed you today, tools you may already own. So a lot of the licensing you need may already be in place. Now, if you're not ready or not at that stage for a free trial or a roadmap workshop, we're happy to go deeper with you on a personalized one-on-one demo. Paul gave you a nice generalized overview today, but if you have specific requirements and use cases you'd like to explore, we're happy to schedule that with you and do that. You can reach us at contact@oneplan.ai, or you're going to get a copy of these slides and a link to the recording. Feel free to reach out either to myself or to Paul directly if you're interested. At OnePlan, our mission is to be invested in success, and by that we mean our customers' success. So with that, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch us today and to take part in this topic, and we really do hope to engage with you in the future. Have a great day.